The Abominable Love, a novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This is an intriguing epic story which resonates with love, resilience, courage, and sacrifice. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief paragraphs for a review to be printed in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. This tale is a work of fiction, but the entire novel is based on a real love story between an Arab girl and an African boy. All names, characters, places, and events are either the product of the author's imagination or used literary. Therefore, any resemblance to actual people, living or dead, events or locales is merely coincidental. Chapter 14. A quarrel between two friends. In some cities of the eastern region, such as Port Sudan, Kassala, and Gadaref, it is not a common phenomenon for a single unmarried girl to live alone. Even for a single man, it is exceedingly rare to see a male living alone. People will always complain if a bachelor rents a hut in someone's house in their neighborhood. They consider the life of an unmarried man alone to be as dangerous to their daughters and sons as plague. If any family finds out that their son is associated with such an unmarried man living alone, they will ground him at home. If the boy cannot be restrained, the people of that neighborhood will come together and force that bachelor to leave immediately and move to another neighborhood. They believe that bad vices such as smoking cigarettes and shisha, drinking alcohol, taking drugs, theft, armed robbery, sodomy, rape, and adultery are picked up by young men in the homes of unmarried men. However, in a big city like Khartoum, people don't care much about a single man living alone. Even young single girls in their teens live alone here and there. It's okay as long as the single girl who rents and lives alone doesn't bring a man into her apartment. If something like that is discovered, the neighbors would constantly harass that unmarried girl until she moved out of the building and went somewhere else. University students began the practice of living together. Most of these students are from regional cities. To solve the housing problem, some regional university girls rent a large apartment and live in a group. For each regional city, there is a student association. Each association rents 3 or 4 apartments to house its girls. In every building, there is a guard. The main duty of the guard is to protect the girls from any male intruders. A girl can meet her lover anywhere else, but not in those rented apartments. They are known as girls' apartments, and therefore only girls are allowed to enter and live there. In one neighborhood of Khartoum, the neighbors began to feel uneasy about the activities of 2 teenage girls from the cities of Port Sudan and Kassala. These 2 girls live in one apartment with 2 double rooms. The neighbors thought the 2 girls were university students. People complained and alleged that the 2 student girls brought men to their apartment late at night. Although such a moral practice does not happen every night, it does happen once or twice a week. Neighbors who claimed to have seen the men said they were different. So, they decided that the 2 girls were undercover prostitutes, but disguised themselves as 2 university students. To get rid of them and their lewd actions, the neighbors complained to the owner of the building. The landlady went to the 2 girls and warned them not to repeat such an unwanted practice. The 2 girls swore to God that they had not engaged in such kind of immoral activities, nor had any kind of bad male visitors coming to their apartment at night. After another week had passed, the landowner came to the 2 tenants again and informed them of the second complaint she had received from the neighbors. Then she gave them her final warning. However, the second complaint caused a division and a quarrel between the 2 girls. The girl, Ishraka Salah al-Junaid, the younger and more beautiful of the 2, said, "If we are both innocent, how come the neighbors always claim that they see some men entering our apartment in the middle of the night?" The older girl, known as Badriya Adarub, said angrily, "Are you accusing me, Ishraka, of bringing men to the apartment at night? Listen, Badriya, if you invite your boyfriend to come to the apartment at night, I will not stay with you anymore. I used to bring him to the apartment, but I stopped when you started complaining and objecting to his coming. We meet now in a public park, in a movie theater, or on the riverbank, and have an enjoyable time as two friends who intend to marry Islamically and have halal sex. So, I haven't had sex with him yet, and I'm still a virgin, just like my mother gave birth to me. I allowed him to kiss me on the lips and embrace my body, and I told him that I would not allow you to touch me under my belly button until after a permissible marriage according to the Book of God and the Sunnah of his Prophet. Anyway, if these accusations from the neighbors are true, I will know soon. You mean to say that you don't believe me in what I told you about my lover? Are you accusing me, Ishraka, of lying to you? It's not me who accuses you, but our neighbors always accuse us. Why me? You're the girl who brings men here at night. You know I would never do such an immoral act. I don't even have a boyfriend like you. Is this the way you reward me for the good I did for you, Ishraka? Are you accusing me of being a bad girl? I told you that I was not the one who started the accusation, but our neighbors accused us of being bad girls. Since I don't have a boyfriend and I'm not interested in having a lover, it's reasonable for me to conclude that you bring some guys into your room at night. Why aren't you the accused girl who has a secret lover who comes to her room at night and has sex with her in her bed? I don't have a love affair with any man. You are the girl in this building who makes friends with many young men, and you bring these guys to your room at night whenever I go to sleep in my room and engage in fornication with them for wages, as prostitutes do. How dare you say that to me? What is your evidence? Can you tell me from where you get your money? You have a lot of money, and you only go out of here in the evening. I told you I work as a secretary and my boss pays me well. I asked you to show me your workplace, but you always make excuses. I told you my boss doesn't want me to bring anyone into his office. Badriya continued to defend herself against the accusations of her roommate, Ishraka, who accused her of practicing camouflaged prostitution. Badriya would stop from time to time and say to Ishraka, "Is this how you reward me for the good I did for you?" The quarrel between the two friends raged until some of the neighbors heard their fighting words. Finally, Badriya stood on her feet and looked at Ishraka angrily, as if she wanted to jump on her and strangle her to death, but she left the dining room, entered her room, and closed the door behind her so violently that she almost broke it. Ishraka remained sitting in the dining room, staring at her friend's door. As time passed, her anger began to melt. When she no longer held a grudge against her friend, she felt sorry. Ishraka hoped that her friend Badriya would open the door of her room and come out and apologize to her for accusing her of committing adultery. Instead, Badriya went to bed without eating dinner. She also lost her appetite. While she is sitting alone, Ishraka began to think about the neighbors' accusations against them. Why do the neighbors in the residence accuse only the two of them without pointing their fingers at the other girls? There are many girls living in the same building, but none of them had been accused of such a serious case. This question led Ishraka to conclude that Badriya either brought her boyfriend secretly at night or some men are visiting her. If the second possibility is proven to be true, the roommate, Ishraka, decided to separate from Badriya. If it is just her boyfriend, she should put an end to his visits. Therefore, to find out the truth, Ishraka decided to spy on the activities of her friend Badriya. When she reached this decision, she got up from her chair and went out of the living room and entered her room. She looked at her watch and realized it is midnight. She turned off her lights and went to bed. She couldn't sleep right away. As she laid on her bed, Ishraka began to think about her past. She remembered when she met the girl Badriya for the first time at the General Railway Station in Khartoum City. At that time, she had just arrived in the capital city of Sudan, coming by train from the Red Sea port of Port Sudan City, and she had nowhere to go to and did not know anyone in the cosmopolitan city. It was Badriya who met her by chance and introduced herself to her. She is a genuinely nice and friendly girl. In the largest train station in Sudan, Ishraka had fallen in love with her since the day they met by chance. From the first meeting, the two girls became good friends. They shared their invincible problems with each other. In many ways, the two girls discovered they had similar insurmountable problems. Badriya from Port Sudan. She ran away from home because her brother wanted to slaughter her in an honor killing. Her neighbors had also accused her of having relationships with different men and told her brother that his sister had become a prostitute. Ishraka from the city of Kassala. She ran away from home and her city when her drunken brother wanted to force her to marry his criminal friend. This is what each of them said to the other, the reasons for their escape from their families and cities and coming to Khartoum City. Badriya suggested to Ashraka that she can come and stay with her in her apartment. It has been 1 month since the two girls started living together. Badriya does not burden Ashraka by asking her to share the rent for the apartment. She knows that her friend has no source of income. She promised to find her a job. Ashraka continued to live with Badriya, hoping to find a way to earn a living. Badriya has beautiful and expensive clothes. She also has a lot of money. She always said that the rich businessman she worked for as his private secretary pays her well. While Ashraka was engrossed in these thoughts and memories, she heard some movement in their apartment. At first, she thought it was Badriya. But then, she wondered why her friend was moving when the light was off. She got out of bed and slowly moved towards the door of her room. In the dim light that came from outside the apartment, she saw the silhouette of a man. Before she could tell who he was, the man entered Badriya's room. He pulled the door closed behind him. Ashraka went to her friend's room and stood in front of the door. She concluded that the man came to meet Badriya and was one of those men who came at night to commit adultery with her. When she reached the door, she put her ear to the keyhole. She didn't hear anything. She thought her slut friend told the fucking guy not to make any noise. She decided to go back to her room and wait for the bad man to leave, and then she could catch her friend red-handed with the man committing the heinous act of fornication with her. Once Ashraka returned to her room, she heard her friend's door open. She looked through the keyhole and saw the man. She could not believe that Badriya could bring such an ugly man into her room to commit adultery with him in exchange for a fee. His dirty clothes and thick hair reminded her of some of the Beja tribesmen she had seen in eastern Sudan when she was living in Port Sudan City. His eyes are red. His hair stood like a wild bush above his large, square head. She knew that he was a member of the Hadandoa tribe who lived in eastern Sudan. The scary-looking man quickly moved to the outer door. Then he opened the door and ran away and disappeared. Ashraka was surprised to see the ugly man running away and leaving the outer door open. She quickly ran to the outside door and closed it. Then she went to her friend's room. She knocked on her door forcefully and with extreme anger. "Badriya, Badriya. Please open the door for me because I saw everything you did with that scary man who looks like an accursed devil." Ashraka repeated her insubstantial accusation to Badriya several times. When there was no response, she pushed the door open and entered. When she saw her friend, she was terrified and started shaking and muttering unintelligible words. She found Badriya lying on the ground surrounded by a pool of blood. A large dagger has been inserted into her chest. Ashraka's body became paralyzed, and her eyes were widely open. The horrific sight of her friend Badriya's murdered body reminded her of the corpse of the old geezer Haj Taha, whom she killed when he tried to rape her on their first wedding night. As soon as she overcame the shock, the runaway bride Insaf turned her back and fled from her friend's room. She didn't stop in the dining room. She opened the outer door and fled into the street as if the devil were chasing her with his horns on his head and a pitchfork in his hands. She's running as fast as she could. If anyone saw her running away, he might conclude that she would never stop again. It was still dark when the runaway girl finally ran out of gas and fell in the middle of the street. She collapsed like someone who got shot by many poisoned arrows. Her body became numb while she was sweating profusely. She felt as if 1,000 ants were crawling over her body. She's breathing hard. Her vision was obscured by complete darkness. She wanted to empty her stomach, but she couldn't. She struggled to call for help, but her voice failed her. She knows she will die like a stray dog on the street. No one is there to witness her death alone. Eventually, she fell into a long coma. Then her lifeless body entered a deep, bottomless pit, and she passed away. Chapter 15. In the worst, most dangerous, and dirtiest hospital in the world. The teen girl who had twice escaped death remained in a comatose state forever. Meanwhile, Her deceased soul is struggling to emerge from the bottomless pit of darkness that has engulfed her soul and submerged her body for so long. Her five senses are still paralyzed and do not respond properly to the efforts of her soul, which is struggling to resurrect from death. After a long struggle, her sense of smell returned, but she began to react to the worst smell she had ever inhaled through her nose. At first, she thought she was resurrected as a zombie in a cemetery surrounded by decaying dead bodies that gave off a pungent odor. She wished her nose would be cut off so that she would never be able to feel that disgusting feeling of smelling the stench again. She tried to plug her nose with her hand before she choked to death, but her limbs are still not well connected to her brain. Her hearing is the second sense organ that responds to her unproductive efforts. Her ears began to fill her head with the screaming of children, the chatter of women, the crying and wailing of people, and conversations in different tongues. The many foreign languages made her believe that she has in fact died and cast into the fire of hell, and these people are infidels. The unbearable heat that she feels burning her body confirmed this belief that she is thrown into hell with the immoral infidels, who are the wood for the fire. The intense fever burning her body confirmed to her that it is the flame of Gehenna, which she had been told at school by her Islamic teacher is the fire of hell whose fuel is people and stones. Her tongue is the next organ to start working. She felt a very bitter taste in her mouth. She thought it is the bitter taste of the zakum tree, which the Holy Quran said the infidels would eat in hell instead of food. When she opened her eyes and looked around, her new discovery refuted all her previous conclusions. She found herself neither in hell nor in jail, but in a hospital. It is Omdurman General Hospital, which is worse than hell, cemetery, toilet, sewer, or prison. This hospital was built a century ago at a time when the British colonialists ruled Sudan with iron and fire. Since the British built the hospital more than 100 years ago, no renovation, restoration, expansion, construction, or addition to the ancient building has been made. When the hospital was established, the total population of Omdurman city did not exceed a few thousand, but today more than 5 million people live in that city. The hospital is known for its griminess. It is dirtier than the filthiest public washroom stinking of urine and feces, or the disgusting putrid sewer in Sudan. The Khartoum government recently issued what it called a call of hope. It called on philanthropists and wealthy people to contribute donations to clean the hospital and improve the health conditions there. Patients who entered the hospital with simple, non-fatal diseases such as headache, fever, and stomach problems were discharged with infectious and deadly diseases such as cholera, AIDS, tuberculosis, Ebola, and the coronavirus. Nurses act like doctors and doctors think they are gods on earth. Many nurses never went to nursing school, and some doctors never went to medical school. Some nurses and doctors do not know how to read and write because they have never gone to school in their entire lives. It is a widespread practice in this hospital for patients to prescribe medication to other patients. Even the medicines are sometimes sold to ill women that the sweepers stole from the families of other sick women. Unfortunately, when the runaway girl Ashraka opened her eyes and discovered that she is in the Omdurman General Hospital, it happened to be the day of the visitors. On the visiting day, anything goes. The patient can receive any number of visitors. If the sick person is an influential man in his community, all the members of his tribe and the residents of his neighborhood must come to see him on that day while he is bedridden. Not visiting a patient in the hospital may lead to animosity that will last forever. Each visitor is expected to bring food or fruit to the patient. Women find nothing more interesting than a visit to a patient in the hospital. It is a good opportunity to free them from house arrest and domestic responsibility. In addition, the hospital is a good place to meet other women and exchange information and gossip. For teenage girls, in addition to all the above advantages, the hospital is a wonderful place to meet their young, handsome lovers. Boyfriends go there to meet their girlfriends. Unmarried girls go to the hospital to find life partners. Husbands who want to be polygamous visit the hospital to search for a second or third wife, while the wives go there to fight the harmful wives competing with them in their polygamous husbands. As soon as Ashraka looked around, she saw children playing, urinating, farting, defecating, vomiting, and sucking their mothers' emaciated breasts. The ladies chatter, laugh, and cry. Patients eat, drink, cry, suffer, and die. Nurses give injections and medications, dress wounds, and change patients' clothes. Other animals and insects, such as cats, rats, ants, lizards, flies, cockroaches, and mosquitoes, are also busy biting, cannibalizing, and sucking the blood of humans. Ishraka closed her eyes and allowed the insects to feed on her flesh. She wished someone would come and cover her body. Of all the 77 patients in the women's ward, she is the only patient who has no visitors that day. She is in a completely helpless state and does not move, as if she has become a vegetable. She remained in that comatose state all night until the next day. Late the next afternoon, a nurse came and checked her heart to see if she was dead and gone for good or still alive. She knows that the strange girl has been in a coma for a long time. Then Ishraka opened her eyes and looked at the nurse. The nurse said in amazement, "Finally, you have come out of that long coma." The sick girl responded with a faint smile. "What is your name, miss?" "My name is Inam Sola Al-Junaid." Insaf lied again about her real name. She deliberately lied to hide her true identity for fear that the police would learn that she had twice escaped from 2 murdered bodies. "Where do you live?" "I'm a strange girl in this city." "Well, that explained to us the mystery for us. Not a single visitor has come to see you since you came here a week ago." Inam remained silent. "You're having a nervous breakdown. Doctors don't yet know the cause of your illness. There is no indication that you were attacked or beaten by street prostitutes or raped by someone. Some people found your body while you were lying unconscious in the street and brought you here." The nurse stopped for a while and looked at Inam expectantly. When the patient did not say a word, the nurse resumed speaking. "You are not even pregnant with Walid Haram or a bastard child through adultery, rape, or incest. Have you ever faced any problem with your heart or nerves, or suffered a nervous breakdown or emotional shock such as trauma?" "Not at all," the homeless girl, Inam, answered calmly. "Do you want the hospital administration to contact your family?" "I have no family, relatives, or acquaintances in Khartoum City." The nurse looked suspiciously at the unidentified patient. "What is the name of your city or village where you were born?" "I am from Kassala City." The nurse printed the name of her city in her notebook and added the name of the patient, Inam Sola Al-Junaid. Then she looked seriously at the patient, who looked like an outcast with no lineage or a relative, for some time before she left. Inam remained in that dirty hospital for another week before she was able to stand on her feet and walk around. Before her body regained full health, another nurse informed her that she would be discharged from the hospital the next day. She told her that there are many patients who are in serious condition and lying lifeless on the ground outside the women's ward, waiting for some beds to become empty to accommodate them. The truth of the matter is that the 2 nurses who spoke to the patient, Inam, are fake nurses, and the doctors who treated her are hoax physicians. None of them are qualified in the field of medicine. Those 2 nurses did not go to the High School of Nursing, nor did the doctors go to the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Khartoum. All of them obtained their professions and jobs with forged medical certificates. That night, the runaway bride, who became homeless on the streets and escaping from justice, began to worry about her next move. She is determined to sever any ties to her past as Insaf, Iqbal, and Ishraka. She knows that someone killed her friend Badriya. She doesn't know who that horrible-looking man was who broke into their apartment at night and killed her friend, nor why he killed her. She decided not to try to find out for fear of getting involved with the police authority. She knows that she is a runaway bride and wanted by the police for killing her 77-year-old groom, Haj Taha. Chapter 16. The homeless Muslim girl meets 2 Christian evangelist girls. In the afternoon of the next day, which is a Friday holiday, the sick girl, Inam, has been expelled from her sick bed. As soon as she vacated her bed, the nurses brought a woman suffering from cancer who is in her last stages. Inam dragged her sick body and began to walk out of the women's ward into the spacious hospital complex. The first scene that caught her attention is a small gathering of homeless people. For the unemployed citizens, beggars, loafers, homeless, scoundrels, crooks, pickpockets, thugs, and the like, Any gathering is attractive to them no matter how trivial because it gives them a sense of belonging to the community as human beings. When the dreadful terrorist group of the Muslim Brotherhood seized power in Sudan through a military coup d'état on June 30, 1989, this phenomenon became quite common. Every Muslim man claimed to be a religious preacher, and every Muslim terrorist claimed to be a social reformer. When the number of mosques became smaller and the number of worshippers in them increased, preachers began to deliver their sermons everywhere. Most of their preaching aims to frighten people from entering the fire of hell, the fuel of which is people and stones, and to bring them closer to the Garden of Paradise, under which rivers flow with wine, and in which there are the beautiful nymphs, who are eternal virgins and with whom there are immortal boys. One speaker may preach about the torment of the grave and the bald snake, another about God's punishment for not praying, another about a person who did not forget to eat his dinner but forgot to pray the last prayer of the day at night, another about a homosexual man who had sex with a cow or a goat, and so on. Naturally, the Muslim Brotherhood government encouraged such Islamist activities. Other religious groups, such as Christians, also seized the opportunity and began preaching their gospels. Government agents who are God's police do not tolerate such proselytizing from the Christian community. To avoid religious persecution, Christian groups employ women instead of men. God's holy policemen may confiscate or destroy any materials or equipment used by these Christian women, but they will not harm or arrest these immoral infidels who are from the group of non-Muslim women who don't wear the veil or hijab. They fear condemnation and economic sanctions by Western countries, especially the United States of America. When the expelled patient Inam left the women's ward that Friday afternoon, her feet carried her to a small gathering inside the hospital compound. The main speaker is a Christian girl. Next to her stands another teenage Christian girl. Around the two girls, there is a crowd of 20 to 25 people. The first thing that caught Inam's attention is not the preaching of the two missionary girls, but rather the vast difference between them. One is tall and the other is short, one is black and the other is white, the first is skinny and the second is fat. The preaching girl is the tall, dark, and skinny. Although her face revealed that she is over 20 years of age, her voice is that of a 5-year-old girl. She irritates her listeners rather than attracts their attention. From time to time, the other girl corrects her many linguistic mistakes in pronouncing the Arabic language. The speaker is an African Negro Dinka girl, and therefore she has difficulty pronouncing the Arabic letters because her tongue is uncircumcised, as the racist people in Sudan say. The other Christian girl, a Coptic Arab, is short, white, and fat. She is gifted with a man's voice. Although she corrects the preaching girl's mistakes through whispers, the audience hears her more than the main evangelist girl. The gospeler shouts into the ears of her audience with exceedingly difficult evangelical words about original sin and the necessity of salvation through faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, his atonement death, and the shedding of his blood on the cross for the sins of everyone who believes in him. The way she tries to preach the good news or the gospel of Jesus to them is neither understood nor likely to be accepted by any of them. The sudden appearance of the homeless girl Inam changed the atmosphere of that small gathering. The speaker raised her voice 10 degrees higher than before. Her fat Christian friend also began preaching in her loud male voice. Loiterers, beggars, vagabonds, scoundrels, pickpockets, street urchins, thugs, hustlers, thieves, and itinerants moved as one man and gathered around Inam. Her gorgeous beauty and sexy body caught their attention and made everyone's cock stand like an English cannon. Everyone with erected phallus among them started staring at her lovely face and wanted to touch her sexy body. The two evangelical Christian girls looked even more ugly when they stood next to her. The small gathering began to grow rapidly. In an abbreviated time, that small group became a large crowd of more than 100 listeners. Even Arab citizens, who considered themselves nobles and masters of the so-called Jingo African slaves, came and joined the crowd. The two Christian girls lost their voices because they shouted the glorious gospel message for 2 hours. Some listeners asked the beautiful Inam to come to the center and preach her Islamic religious message as well. From wearing her abaya and hijab, They knew that she is a Muslim damsel because the two Christian girls are wearing shirts and trousers like boys. When the sweet Mohammedan girl told them she had nothing to talk about, they wanted her to sing or dance for them. Then the government dogs, who were called the Holy God Reformation religious police officers, quickly joined the crowd and began showing off their masculine muscles. The so-called righteous police of Allah pulled the three girls aside and searched their clothes and purses. Then they snatched from the two Christian missionaries their holy Bibles and their small religious tracts. They set fire to those holy Bibles and their Christian missionary booklets before their eyes and then sent them away. The two Christian girls showed interest in the Muslim girl, Inam, and asked her to join them for a walk. When they have walked for a while and become sure that the correctional police officers of God are not following them, they stopped and introduced themselves to Inam. "My name is Rosemary," said the tall girl, "and this is my friend Clementina." "My name is Ilham Sola Al-Junaid." Insaf has lied for the fourth time about her real name. Rosemary asked her, "Where do you live, Miss Ilham Al-Junaid?" Before Ilham could answer the question, the short girl Clementina asked her another question. "Do you mind if we take your address and visit you at your house tomorrow?" The homeless Muslim girl answered in a sad voice, "I don't have an address." "Sorry to bother you," Clementina continued. "We know that most people don't like to give us their addresses. People don't like to reveal their identities for fear of their Muslim families and police officers," Rosemary said. "Do you mind if we meet you somewhere again?" Clementina said. "I don't know of any specific place to meet you two again. I'm just wandering aimlessly in the streets," the runaway girl said while crying. The two Christian girls stopped and looked at each other. They did not believe what they had heard. "What did you say?" the two girls said in unison. "I have no shelter. I have no family or relatives in Khartoum. I don't have money either. I am a strange girl in this big cosmopolitan city." "Where do you sleep at night?" Rosemary asked. "This is my first day on the streets. I don't know where I will sleep at night." Rosemary asked again, "Do you need temporary shelter?" Before Ilham could answer her, Clementina asked her another question. "Where did you live before today?" "I was living in the hospital." "But the hospital is neither a hotel nor a jail," Rosemary said. "I was living in the hospital as a patient, but I got discharged today and kicked out by the nurses." "But before you fell sick and got admitted in the hospital, where had you been?" Clementina asked. "I am from Kassala City. I fled my home and my city because my drunken brother wanted to force me to marry his criminal friend. When I arrived by train in this city, someone attacked me at night in the street and then stole my money and bag. He beat me until I passed out. Some people found my body lying unconscious in the street and took me to Omdurman General Hospital. I spent several days in the hospital almost dead. When I regained consciousness and health, I was kicked out of the women's ward today. I don't know where to go or where to sleep at night." "That's a sad story," Rosemary said. "Yes, her story is very sad," Clementina agreed. "I think Clementina could take you to her house," Rosemary suggested. "I can't do it," Clementina shouted out at once. "My mother will not accept anyone unless he is a Christian. Unfortunately, Ilham is a Muslim girl by birth. Therefore, Sister Rosemary, you must take her to your family's house." The evangelist Rosemary angrily shouted at her Christian companion Clementina, "My father is not a Christian believer and is a drunkard. While drunk at night, he might rape this beautiful Muslim girl if I took her to my house. But I cannot take her home either. Clementina, you do not have a father, and your mother is a Christian believer. God's love is supposed to be shown to everyone even if they are Muslims like this girl who is homeless and without shelter and money. Otherwise, how can your Coptic mother claim to be a Christian believer if she does not want to help people? I will be in big trouble with my mother if I take this Muslim girl to my house. My sister in Christ Clementina, do not fear your mother more than you fear your God, the Lord Jesus who saved you. I am not afraid of her, but I know what her reaction will be when she sees this Muslim girl entering her sacred abode." The two evangelical Christian girls continued to argue among themselves for an exceedingly long time. They quoted many biblical verses from the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, as well as from the Torah, the the Psalms, the books of the prophets, the Acts of the Apostles, the New Testament epistles of Paul and others, and the book of Revelation to support their opposing views. When nothing worked, Rosemary threatened to inform the church pastor about Clementina's mother's unbiblical attitude toward sinners, such as Muslims and atheists who are on their way to hell if they do not repent and accept the Lord Jesus. Because Clementina fears the church pastor more than she fears God, she reluctantly agreed to face the great danger and take the sinful, unbelieving Muslim girl to her strong, faithful Pentecostal Christian mother. Meanwhile, the homeless Muslim girl, Ilham Salah al-Junaid, remains suspended between heaven and earth and the heated, endless religious arguments of the two evangelical Christian girls, Rosemary and Clementina, until her fate finally determined her visit to Mrs. Holly's sacred abode.